Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to turn my little button off. How's everybody doing? I hope well. Let's see, playing. There we go. Turn that off. We see. Hi, Cindy's here, and Joy. Joy. Oh my goodness, it looks cold. You're all brave, brave soul, Joy. Well done. And then Dondi's outside. Awesome. Good to see you. Hey, Della. No hat today. And Mr. Bird hat. Your hair looks great. Don't worry. It looks awesome. Hi, Jermaine. Good to see you. And Kathy. Hi, hi. I think your screen is doing that funky thing again. I don't know why it, aw. Okay, there we go, perfect. Linda's here. Hi, Linda. Getting all set up, great. Suzanne, hello. Okay, let's see. Oh, I was gonna leave a little message for anyone. Let me get to the chat. All right, I'm just gonna leave a quick little note for folks who might come in. Oops, that's not the one I wanted.
The Tigger-Moggy's rear end is here as well.
Who is?
The Tigger-Moggy's rear end is here as well.
Oh, great. I was, Jermaine, I was able to see Dan and I don't know if you saw his post on Facebook, but we actually did see the stellar sea eagle.
I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful.
It was amazing. I mean, it was farther than what Dan saw last year, like our view of it, which she was pretty far away. But if anyone is anywhere near Maine in the next, I don't know, you never know how long she'll stay, but if you have any plans to be up around the area of Maine, definitely make a trip to go and try to see the stellar sea eagle.
It was somewhere like Georgetown or something like that.
Yeah, I forget the town we drove through. I know it was north of Portland by a good distance.
Yeah, it's only
an hour and a
half
half from York. Yeah. But anyway, it was really spectacular to see this giant eagle from Siberia, you know? Yeah.
I like the way it came back too. It's like, okay, this is a good place to hang out in the winter.
Yeah, I agree. When she was there, there was I shouldn't say juvenile, immature bald eagle that was sort of pestering her a little bit. He like flew over. I say he? I don't know. It could have been another female, but it flew over the tree she was perched in, and then it like landed in the tree and just sort of like looked at her a little bit, you know. It was like kind of taking her on, and she just looked at him and she's like, whatever. Like she's so big.
They're so feisty, those bald eagles.
Yeah, and she's just like their length is about the same, but the girth of the stellar sea eagle, I forget. They're like one of the heaviest eagles in the world.
And so long wingspan, I bet.
Whatever, and a very long wingspan. Yeah, actually, there's a guy who had a photo of her when she took flight. He has a picture of her, and you can't see my hands, but her hands, her wings were literally like touching each other at the top, you know, in full flight. It's like,
I've seen some videos. Yeah, I've seen some videos.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Anyway, I won't geek out too much about the stellar sea eagle, but she's pretty awesome. Well, welcome everybody. So today we're going to be focusing on, and Jackie, I didn't say hi to you. Hello, Jackie. Good to see you. We're going to focus on our ears and listening in a different way as well. So if you have the ability to either be outside or to raise your window a little bit, open your window, crack your window, or however people crack their windows these days, then go ahead and do that. Because but also it won't be necessary. It's just might be nice. So yeah, find a nice cozy place. Hi Claudia, good to see you. Always so bright and shiny. All right, so let's all settle in wherever you are. Just a reminder, you're welcome to play along with what we're doing here today. You also can just do your own thing. If you do find that you have to get up and move around, if you can just turn your monitor off while you do that, it's a little less distracting, but I love to have your videos on so we can see everybody, and we will spend a little time at the end talking and chatting about what our experience was today. So you're finding a nice cozy place to sit with your tea or wine, if it's late like it is for Anat, or whatever you do, doesn't matter to me. So just you're in your cozy space, and just let yourself settle in and do just a scan of yourself in this moment. Just kind of take stock of what's going on in your own body, in your own mind. Just give yourself a minute to be present to that. And do your best not to make any judgments about what might be going on in your experience, just noticing. Now go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and let it go. And this time, when you take your next deep breath in, do it with the intention of smelling the air, filling your lungs, just noticing what scents are on the air this morning, and then letting it go. And do that a couple more times. Allowing the scents to come into your experience, to your presence. And with each breath in, you're filling your lungs with the essence of the world around you today. And then as you let it out, you're just letting go of anything that you want to let go of in this moment, anything you don't need to hang on to. All the while, just slowing your heart rate naturally, just grounding and calming, and becoming more receptive. And if you have your eyes open, you can find a point off in the distance, somewhere as far as you can possibly see with your naked eye. Just focus on that point, remembering your breath. And then let that point, let your vision start to soften. So you're still going to be looking at that point, but everything is just going to kind of expand and soften in your vision. So you're taking in as much as you possibly can. You can even try to imagine that you can see behind you right now. So allow your eyes to soften so much that you can start to pretend as if you're looking behind yourself. And we're going to focus a lot on our ears in just a moment. But for now, just go ahead and feel your skin, noticing if there's any wind or air, even if you're indoors. See if even on the tip of your nose or on your cheeks, maybe on your hands, you might be able to feel what direction the air is moving in. It might be very subtle. Fantastic. So just let yourself stay in this nice, settled state for a moment. And our main focus today is going to be the word listen. So we're going to be listening today in a variety of different ways. And just to give you a little sense, I went to my very favorite website, which is called Etymol Online or something that's Etymology Online, and looked up the etymology of the word listen, and it's really beautiful. It means hears, not just to hear, but hears. It means obey in Sanskrit, so it means hears and obey in Sanskrit. In Lithuanian, it means splendor or honor, so splendor and honor. In Greek, it means to be called. And then in Latin, it means to hear oneself called. So we're going to be listening today. And to begin with, we're just going to tap into what the baseline is of our land. So what are just the sounds that are just a part of the background? Some sounds you may not even consciously hear because you've kind of made them the background noise. So we're going to become conscious of them to start our practice out this morning. So you can still keep your eyes in that nice softened gaze. And first I want you to become aware of all the baseline sounds, those sounds that are just normal sounds in your environment or normal even just for today, that are human-made sounds. So we'll begin with the human-made sounds first. And just listen for those for the next moment or two. And so we're just taking stock. So it's just kind of like almost like you're writing a checklist. You're like, oh yeah, there's the highway sounds, the cars. And for me, it's like there's, children playing at the playground and there's an airplane going overhead. So you're just kind of making a mental list of the sounds you hear. And when you think you've got them all, listen a little bit deeper. Maybe there's a few others. So we'll stay with the human made sounds for just a moment longer. Okay, nice work. So if you are outside, this next one might be a little bit easier. And if you're indoors, you can use your eyes for this one to try to imagine the sound. But we're going to focus on now the sounds of the plant world. So the trees, the plants, anything that looks to be some sort of a living plant being right now. So what are the sounds the plants are making that are just part of your natural environment right now? Don't forget to stretch your listening out as far as you can along the landscape. So how far out can you listen for a mile away? You don't have to spend all your time on that, but just maybe the last moment or two, just really try to stretch your awareness as we go through these different elements. Okay, and now we can layer in the mammal world. So are there any baseline mammal sounds in your neck of the woods? And as you're listening for each new layer, do your best to not forget the other layers that you had already taken stock of. Try and bring it all in. Oh boy, there's a skunk on my deck. Okay, and the last layer is the layer of the birds. So now send your awareness. That chickadee is yelling at the skunk at the moment. So send your awareness out onto your landscape, listening for the bird sounds. And remember, we're just taking stock of the baseline. So the sounds that are fairly common, maybe there, if there's a new bird song, I have a cardinal that's starting to sing, so that's a pretty regular sound. Just kind of, and you don't have to be able to identify them, but just like, oh yeah, that's that, you know, like scratchy gate sounding bird or whatever. You can find your own way to name them, but just take stock of the bird sounds right now. Okay, good work. So now what we're going to do is just allow ourselves to really be still and listen. So, listening in the stillness of the knowing of all that is baseline on your land right now. So just allowing everything to be. And we're going to be quiet and just listening for about 5 minutes or so. So, I'll just let you be in stillness right now. All right, good work, everybody. So you can continue doing what you were doing just a moment ago, or you can add one other layer onto this. And so we're going to listen again, but this time, this next bit of listening, we're going to be doing that with the rest of our body. So not using your ears. So what would it be like to listen with the rest of your body? And different people might focus on different parts. If you don't know what that means, it's okay. Just do your best to just ask that question. What would it be if I listened with another part of myself, of my being right now? What might I hear? What might I know? And so we're going to sit in silence. And if it's more helpful, you can close your eyes or even close your ears. That's another possibility. But just allow yourself to listen in a different way. I'll let you know when we're done. right, good work. So take this next minute to offer gratitude or thanks to those ones that you connected with this morning in whatever way is natural for you. Okay, now we can, whenever you're complete with that, share stories. I might actually start this morning, and then anyone else who wants to go, you can just put your hand up or your virtual hand. So when I threw out that idea of listening for mammals, in that moment there were no mammals that I could see on my landscape, and it's coming back. And so I just asked myself, like, I thought, like, well, what would it sound like if a mammal were walking right now? And was the whistle. And just as I said that, as I kind of put that in my mind, that's when I heard the skunk start to, like, it was running in the leaf litter, and then it came upon the deck, and it goes, they sometimes they use my deck to hide underneath, and the skunk and the fox and the woodchuck, all sorts of critters live under the deck at different times. And so it went to this little hiding spot that it had, and I could hear it though when it would come out. And now, like, then that sound, I was tuned into what that sound was of a skunk moving in the leaf litter, and so it came out a couple times. I can certainly smell it, but the sound is a whole another thing, and then also how the birds respond to it as well. They really don't like the skunk for some reason, which is interesting. And so there's all different ways to for the skunk to, like, make itself known. But I just want to point that out, that power of asking that question sometimes, just me, like, putting out that question of, like, what would a mammal sound like right now on my landscape? And it was like, oh, here, I'll show you, and here comes the skunk. And I think, I've had that before with some of you have shared your stories of, like, just when you asked this thing, Kristi, basically when you asked that question to your land, something appeared, and yeah, it's just magic. I feel like every time it's coming now over here right now. So anyway, I'm curious to hear anyone else's stories. Let me just turn the volume down just a little bit so we don't startle it too much. There we go. Okay. Anyone want to share a story? Or, yeah, your experience from this morning? Okay, we'll go to Jackie and then Suzanne.
I was trying to hear without my ears. I wasn't getting anywhere, but pretending, to feel. And by golly, this scrub jay let me know that, yes, you can hear without your ears. Right over my head, he just met, that really strong alert. Or to me, it sounds like, why are you in my yard? Let me get in there, very forceful. So I felt that throughout my body. I didn't need my ears.
Yeah. Where did you feel it in your body?
Right in my chest.
In your chest, yeah. And what was the feeling?
Alert.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, he's in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Attention.
Yeah, that's like a really important way to, I mean, some of you may be very skilled and practiced at this, but for those who are just kind of starting out with this idea of listening with our body, beginning to identify, like, getting really specific of, like, what did I feel? Where did I feel it? Because then you can start to sort of build a repertoire of those sensations in your body so that you can have those feelings and be like, oh, something's going on. Like, that's like the intuition that we can learn to develop in our body, right? So yeah, I'm glad that you pointed that out, Jackie. Thanks. Right on. Nice. That's great. All right, Suzanne, go for it.
We're having thunder snow this morning. Ooh. Which is pretty rare. Very cool. And I was wondering if I could feel the thunder if I blocked out my ears. but it was a little too far away. I was thinking I might be able to feel it in my chest or feel it vibrating in my skull or something, but I couldn't feel the thunder, certainly hear it. But I could feel air. I could hear, I don't want to say hear/feel the air movement from one side of my face to the other. And it's so subtle. When I open my eyes, the snowflakes are almost vertical. They're just barely going a little bit sideways. And that was the side that I heard/felt air movement after the thunder. I don't know.
Yeah, right on. That's great. Again, it's like these times where we sort of push ourselves a little bit, nudge ourselves to, I mean, stretch is a good word. So like stretch ourselves to feel, to think, to hear in ways that, you know, we might not normally. And I think every time you do that, you're expanding your capacity to be able to sense and to become aware in richer and deeper ways. So right on, Suzanne. Sweet. Anyone else want to share their experience this morning? Yeah, go ahead, Linda. And then Julia, I just see your, sorry, missed your hand, Julia. You go after. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was very intrigued by the, oh, before I even say anything, I love to hear that cardinal that's where you are. I just love that. It's so beautiful. What a wonderful sound
He's
in the
really
morning.
started to sing quite a lot in the last couple of days. And actually, yesterday was the first day he started singing before dawn. So it was the first pre-dawn song. Yeah, it was really cool. No, he's right.
Very cool. Yeah. You know, I was very intrigued by what you were talking about, feeling with your body or hearing with your body. And I wondered if that was similar to, like, sometimes when I'm hiking, I feel like I'm being watched, but I don't see anybody or hear anything unless they show themselves. And then I say, oh, it must have been you, you know. But anyway, I didn't feel that this morning. I just felt like this companionship with the trees. I felt like hugged. I felt like the trees were hugging me, or I was hugging the trees, or both. And, you know, for some reason I just felt that. So I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about, but it was very cool. It felt very cool to me. So.
Yeah, 100%, Linda. It's all of it. It doesn't always just have to be sort of an alert or an alarm. You know, that's always nice when our body can let us know to watch out, there's danger, sort of thing, you know, or maybe even just that some critter is watching us. But also that feeling and sensation, that connection that you can feel with the land, with the trees, with, you know, people have it with mushrooms, like where you can feel some relationship going on there. And I think the more we can expand to feel that relationship, the more like attuned we will be to those alarms and those you know, like maybe I could have felt the skunk before I ever heard it. You know, maybe there's a part of me that could have picked up on the presence of a skunk before ever, like, my ears ever picked up on hearing the skunk, right? So yeah, definitely that feeling hugged by the trees is absolutely a part of it. Yeah, that's
cool.
beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go for it.
Are we?
Oh, you were unmuted. Now you're muted.
Okay. Are you ready for me?
I'm ready for you.
Well, this is very unusual when we were listening at first and different layers and all, and there was no human sound, and it's very unusual how quiet it was. And I really enjoy I mean, there's not even a breeze to rustle any little leaves or anything. And I could just hear the water in my water features bubbling. And I thought how fortunate I was to be doing this, to allow me to hear the quiet. And since then, a plane has gone over and the refrigerator starts running and the heater starts running and so on. But I really enjoyed the quiet. And then when I wanted to do it, listen with my body, I did this thing. I don't know if you've ever done this, where there's a sense of space that our body takes up, not here, but, you know, if you get too close to someone, they're in your space, you know. So, and then just mentally expanding that space larger and larger so that you can take in. And so I tried that for listening with my body. And then I noticed my tinnitus. Now, it was there before when I was noticing this absolute quiet, but I didn't notice that. So I find that kind of peculiar, interesting. So that was my experience.
Yeah, that's interesting, Julia. I know I have the same thing, that the ringing in your ears, and I don't often hear it until I'm about to go to sleep. Usually at night when I'm laying down to go to bed, it's like, oh, there it is, and occasionally I'll hear it when I'm meditating, if everything else is relatively quiet. In some ways, I think that's sort of a good sign. It means you really were able to still yourself so much that was a prominent sound. And I think sometimes it depends on different people have different experiences with it, but I know for me, everything else has to be, I have to be pretty quiet within my mind and my body and the world around me to actually hear that, So even though it's not a lovely sound, I think it's also like it's a good indication.
I'm wondering if at first when I was experiencing the quiet, that my brain was quiet enough that it didn't register the tinnitus.
Ah, I see. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
could experiment with that.
Yeah, do that. That's interesting. I don't know either. Yeah, and that's also one reason why I think sometimes it's good to be able to, like, I had you sort of all take like a mental list, like a checklist of the sounds that you hear, so that in some ways they can become background noise. We can just allow them just to be there. We don't have to think too much about them anymore. It's like, oh yeah, that's the sound that's happening. It's also just good to be aware, of the sounds that we make background noise, and tap into them for a minute. But hey, there's so many layers to it all. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Julia. Anyone else want to tell their story of the morning? Did you raise your hand, Claudia? Sorry, it's a little, no, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dondi.
Let's see. Well, the mammals I got to hear were the dog barking and neighbors yelling at them, but skunk would have been fun. I expected to hear like a daycare that's, a couple blocks over that I can usually hear the kids out screaming, but they must be inside. But then I tried listening with my body. I tried listening with my legs to see what would happen, but nothing actually. But I listened with my heart, and then I could hear, or what I perceived was, because there were so many birds chattering and singing, and to me they seem like they're just really happy because it hasn't started snowing. It's not really windy right now, and there's so much food for them here, and getting ready for spring. I also heard starlings doing a lot of mimicry of killdeer and meadowlarks, which I've never had killdeer or meadowlarks in my yard, so so I know it was the starlings, but anyway, it's fun exercise, so thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. I'm glad. It's just really interesting to see. Sometimes I like giving direction, for things that we do. And other times I like being really broad, just to see what other people come up with, like with Julia, how she expanded her, her space, and how you went to your legs and then your heart. Like if I had given some focused direction, it might not have allowed all this wonder to happen. Something I'll just share a little bit. So when I was with, some of you know Dan Gardoki, and some don't. He's a friend of mine. We teach together. We do the birdsong class together, and we've known each other for years. But I was just up there looking at the Stellar Sea Eagle, where he lives in Maine, and we were wandering around. There was one golf course, actually. Someone had reported a yellow-breasted chat, and so he's like, "You want to go try and find it?" I was like, "Sure." It was like the next day, or whatever. And so we went there looking for the chat. And this red-shouldered hawk flew over at one point, and the birds, had some little mild alarms to it. And then a moment later, we heard what was a red-shouldered hawk, but actually it was, it was a red-tailed hawk that flew over. And then we heard the red-tailed hawk. And I was like, this doesn't sound, it's the red tail, but it's not, just something was wrong. And I was like, is that a jay? He's like, no, I think it's a starling. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I know I've heard starlings mimic all sorts of birds before, but I've never heard them mimic a hawk. And this is really fascinating to me. And then I was telling him about how I have a starling who hangs out the trees up here that mimics the robin. So when there's the robin flocks are around, there's this one starling that makes like a partial robin call. I always know it's the starling because it's never a full robin song. It's just like a part of it, And then I got to thinking, and we started chatting together, and I was just like, it's interesting. I never put the two and two together that they would make the call when they see the animal, because the red-tailed hawk had just flown over and then it flew kind of off in the other direction. And then the starling made the red-tailed hawk call. And I was like, oh, it totally knows that that's the red-tailed hawk, And then it just got me thinking of like how often it does, they do that when the birds are actually around. And I know, of course, they make so many different kinds of sounds, and they'll make sounds of birds that they've heard in other areas and they've learned in other places, and whatnot. But it just got me thinking of like, oh, that's going to make me really listen now, or really look to see, like, if I hear a sound the starling's making, then it'd be like, oh, is that bird actually here, or did it just go by? Maybe like a flock of killdeer like went by. I don't know, maybe not. But anyway, it just got me thinking it might be a fun thing to play around with now, especially since it seems like you're tapped into them. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Dondi. Yeah, Suzanne, go ahead.
I just had a thought. I wonder if by doing that, we call it mimicking, but I wonder if they're naming. I wonder if the starling was naming the red-tailed hawk the way that you did. You said, oh, there's a red-tailed hawk. And so the starling, its language is to name it by its song, by its sound.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that idea. Yeah, heck yeah. Huh. Yeah, I think for sure there's times where they do, and other times where like, like the jays will use the calls, like sort of mimic it to get what they want. But that's an interesting thought. I know I have this this group of crows that have been hanging out at my house for 5 years, and they used to be 7 of them, and now they've kind of split into a couple different groups. Now there's 3 of them that are the main crew here at the house. But when they were 7, they were the first ones to come from the roost, which is like, how many miles away would that be? Like 20 miles away or so. Anyway, there's a huge roost in a town, about 20 minutes away. And these crows, my crows, were like the first ones to get here, and they would always and I could watch, it's like I call it the river of crows, or the highway of crows. Every morning you just see them over there on the hillside over there. The crows just go by, they get just moving, from the roost in groups, small little groups. But every time they would come by, my crow would announce. It was like he or she was the one who had to get there first thing in the morning, and do his duty to like make the announcement. And the Joneses are coming through, like that person in the court who's just like, now they're announcing like Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. It just felt like that every morning they're doing like the roll call of like who's going by, because it would just make this certain call every time the crows would go by. And it wasn't for every single one, but quite often it was like it would make the announcement that these ones are going by. And so I think you're right that there is some sort of an acknowledgement and a naming or a calling out of the ones that they know. Yeah, I love that concept, the idea. Anyone else want to share your thoughts or stories from this morning? Della's got a big smile on her face. Yeah, Jackie, you want to? You gotta go? Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. All right. Well, did I get everybody? I just want to make sure. Okay. It's so good to see you all this morning. I think we're, let me just look at my calendar really quick. There's going to be some time in April where we won't have the SIP, but I think at least for the next month, we're going to be good to go. I don't think there's anything that I've got. Yeah, pretty much for the month of March, I think we should be good. So, anyway, it was so good to see everyone this morning, and thanks for playing along and sitting with me while I had a visitation with the skunk. It was nice to have friends nearby. All right, everybody, have a really beautiful week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. See you next time.
Okay.